should we have even more nuclear energy in order to get faster independent from Putin and to resolve the climate issues?
I want to be super clear. In my opinion, Germany should not only not shut down the nuclear power plants, it should reopen the ones that shut down.
When Elon Musk took to the stage, the air was thick with the kind of tension that always precedes something historic. Cameras flashed, journalists leaned forward, and for a moment the world held its breath. Musk was never a stranger to controversy or breakthrough announcements, but this time, there was something different in his tone. Measured, grave, and oddly reverent. He spoke about a new technological revelation, not from SpaceX, not from Tesla, but from an unlikely source, the United States Navy. What he unveiled that day would send shockwaves through the scientific community, defense sectors, and geopolitical landscapes around the globe. According to Musk, the US Navy had developed a piece of technology so advanced, so beyond conventional understanding, that it seemed to defy the very boundaries of what was thought possible. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The story began with a classified program known to only a handful of individuals buried deep within the labyrinth of military research. For decades, the Navy had been experimenting with advanced propulsion systems, energy manipulation, and defense technologies. While most people associated the Navy with aircraft carriers and submarines, the truth was far more complex. Its research branches, particularly the Naval Research Laboratory and the Naval Air Systems Command, had been quietly funding projects that blurred the line between science fiction and reality. What Musk revealed was that this secret endeavor had reached fruition. The Navy had successfully tested a propulsion and defense system that rendered traditional warfare obsolete. According to Musk, this device operated on principles that mainstream science had barely begun to theorize. It harnessed energy fields not by chemical combustion or nuclear reaction, but by direct manipulation of space-time geometry. The Navy's engineers, building on research inspired by theoretical physicists, had created a system capable of bending the medium through which energy and matter moved. This technology allowed the craft, whatever its final form, to achieve acceleration without expelling mass, deflect projectiles, and potentially neutralize any incoming threat before it even reached proximity. Musk's tone, though tinged with awe, carried an unmistakable edge of concern. He emphasized that such a leap in defense capability could alter the balance of power forever. Observers described the device as a hybrid between an aircraft and a living organism, fluid, adaptive, and seemingly aware of its surroundings. Unlike anything the world had seen, it didn't rely on engines or turbines. Instead, it pulsed with a kind of rhythmic luminescence, as though powered by an inner core of pure energy. Engineers reportedly called it the singularity drive, a term that encapsulated its ability to bend the rules of motion. This wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a shield, a vessel, and a phenomenon all at once. Musk explained that the underlying mechanism drew upon a system of electromagnetic containment fields interwoven with plasma vortices, an innovation that allowed it to manipulate gravitational effects directly. The implications were staggering. A craft that could move without friction, evade radar detection, and resist external interference would render missiles, jet fighters, and even space-based weapons useless. Nations had built their entire defense strategies around deterrence, but this development shifted the paradigm entirely. Musk spoke candidly about how the balance of deterrence was no longer symmetrical. If the Navy possessed something truly unstoppable, the very concept of warfare might transform into something unrecognizable. The idea of mutual vulnerability, a cornerstone of modern geopolitics, could vanish overnight. From a technological standpoint, the invention marked a convergence of several previously separate fields: quantum field theory, plasma dynamics, and advanced material sciences. Musk noted that the breakthrough hinged on materials capable of sustaining electromagnetic harmonics at frequencies beyond known limits. These materials didn't melt, fracture, or degrade under pressure. They adapted. The Navy's scientists had reportedly used a self-regenerating alloy infused with nanoscopic lattice structures that reorganized themselves in real time, repairing damage as it occurred. This meant the craft could withstand extremes of heat, pressure, and impact that would annihilate any conventional vehicle. Musk hinted that the discovery wasn't entirely by design. It had emerged from a series of experimental misfires during energy field testing off the coast of California. Researchers noticed strange distortions in their readings. Mass fluctuations, energy spikes, and gravitational anomalies that didn't conform to existing models. Instead of dismissing them, a small team pursued the anomalies relentlessly. Over time, they realized they weren't facing a malfunction. They had uncovered a new kind of physical interaction. The results led to the creation of a drive that manipulated what Musk described as inertial differentials, effectively decoupling an object from its own mass. As the revelation spread, scientists around the world scrambled to interpret the implications. Could this be a controlled form of anti-gravity? Was it possible that the Navy had stumbled upon a way to bypass the energy limitations that had hindered propulsion systems for centuries? Musk didn't provide classified specifics, but he confirmed that the technology had already been demonstrated in controlled conditions. The tests showed acceleration rates that would liquefy a human body in a normal aircraft. Yet onboard sensors indicated near-zero inertial stress. It was as if the craft existed in a bubble of altered physics, a self-contained zone immune to the constraints of Newtonian motion. The revelation sparked a philosophical and scientific debate. If the Navy could manipulate gravitational and inertial forces, it meant humanity was standing on the brink of mastering one of the universe's most elusive powers. Energy itself could become limitless. Transportation could transcend atmospheric and even planetary boundaries, and defense could evolve beyond destruction into absolute prevention. Yet, as Musk pointed out, power on that scale carried immense moral weight. The capacity to render all opposition useless might seem like security, but it also created an imbalance that could tempt misuse or accelerate global distrust. At the heart of Musk's revelation was a sobering truth. Progress often outpaces understanding. The scientists who built the system may not have fully comprehended its potential consequences. As Musk elaborated, the principles underpinning the technology might redefine how humanity perceived motion, matter, and energy itself. It wasn't just about military dominance. It was about unlocking the architecture of reality. Musk compared the implications to the moment when humans first split the atom, an event that promised boundless energy but ushered in existential peril. Within defense circles, the reaction was immediate. Analysts theorized that the system could make every known missile defense obsolete. Its energy manipulation capability could disarm threats without contact, perhaps even by disrupting electronic or magnetic fields remotely. There were murmurs that it could generate a protective dome around naval fleets, shielding them from conventional weapons entirely. Musk refused to speculate on the classified capabilities, but his acknowledgement that it can't be stopped resonated deeply. That phrase, repeated across news outlets, became the defining statement of the event. It suggested not merely invulnerability, but inevitability, a leap forward so monumental that resistance was futile. Beyond the defense implications, Musk highlighted the potential civilian benefits that could arise if such technology were ever adapted for non-military use. Imagine a world where aircraft could travel across continents without fuel, or spacecraft could journey between planets without reaction mass. Energy crises could vanish overnight, and transportation could reach speeds once confined to fantasy. Entire industries would transform. Aviation, shipping, space exploration, all redefined by a propulsion system that required no combustion, emitted no pollution, and defied gravitational limits. Musk's excitement was evident as he spoke about how this could mark the dawn of a new age of clean, boundless energy. However, his optimism was tempered by realism. Such technology, if weaponized, could also mean the end of traditional deterrent structures. Nations that once relied on nuclear parity or economic influence would face a reality where a single unstoppable system could dominate without contest. Musk's emphasis on transparency and ethical responsibility underscored his awareness that control over such technology could not rest solely within military hierarchies. He warned that secrecy, while essential for security, could lead to unchecked authority and moral erosion if the system's true potential were ever hidden from oversight. The event also rekindled old theories and conspiracies about unidentified aerial phenomena. For decades, eyewitnesses and pilots had reported strange craft defying conventional physics. Now, many began to speculate that some of those sightings might have been early prototypes of this Navy system. Musk neither confirmed nor denied these theories, but remarked that humanity's technological curve was accelerating toward the once unimaginable. What was once labeled as science fiction was rapidly becoming science fact. In the broader context of human evolution, Musk's revelation symbolized a turning point. It wasn't just about military advancement, it was about confronting the boundaries of human ingenuity. The ability to manipulate energy and gravity meant that humanity was, for the first time, gaining control over forces that shaped the cosmos. This power could be a bridge to a new civilization or a path toward irreversible imbalance. The Navy's creation represented both potential salvation and possible catastrophe, depending on how humanity chose to wield it. As Musk delved deeper into the physics behind the system, he referenced how traditional propulsion relied on reactive forces pushing against mass to generate motion. But the Navy's design bypassed that constraint. By creating a localized distortion in the space-time continuum, the craft moved not through propulsion, but through displacement, sliding reality itself around it. The implications extended beyond motion. This kind of manipulation suggested that time dilation, energy conversion, and even matter transmutation might be achievable under controlled conditions. Musk described it as engineering the void, shaping the vacuum of space into a tool rather than an obstacle. Such statements ignited the imaginations of physicists and futurists alike. If the Navy had indeed achieved controlled manipulation of space-time, it could open the door to instantaneous travel across vast distances. Theoretically, if inertia could be nullified, then acceleration could approach light speed without resistance. Musk's long-standing dream of interplanetary civilization suddenly seemed attainable not in centuries, but in decades. Yet the darker implication lingered. If such movement could occur undetected and unstoppable, no nation could defend against it. The notion of strategic advantage was replaced by one of total supremacy. Musk's demeanor during the revelation oscillated between admiration and caution. He was visibly inspired by the ingenuity behind the system, but deeply aware of its ramifications. He framed the moment as a mirror to humanity's values. Whether such a creation would serve as a guardian of peace or a harbinger of dominance depended entirely on intent. The Navy's scientists, though brilliant, had crossed into a domain where physics met philosophy. The technology was no longer just an instrument. It was a question posed to the world about responsibility, ethics, and the future of civilization. The event ignited a renaissance in scientific curiosity. Research institutions began revisiting long-dismissed theories about zero-point energy, magnetohydrodynamic propulsion, and quantum vacuum fluctuations. For years, these concepts had been relegated to the fringes of science due to lack of empirical validation. Now, with Musk's revelation, they returned to the forefront. The possibility that the U.S. Navy had turned theory into application reignited global competition in advanced physics. Other nations undoubtedly intensified their own secret programs, fearful of falling irreversibly behind. In Silicon Valley, innovators and entrepreneurs saw opportunity. The same principles that made the Navy's craft unstoppable could, if scaled, revolutionize energy distribution. Instead of central grids, localized generators could harness the same energy fields to provide endless power. Musk hinted at collaborating with government agencies to explore civilian applications, though he stressed that strict ethical oversight would be essential. The prospect of an energy revolution, one that made fossil fuels obsolete, electrified public imagination. Humanity might finally step beyond scarcity into an age of abundance. Still, amid the excitement, questions persisted. Could any system truly be unstoppable? Even if impervious to conventional attack, could it withstand the unpredictability of nature or the complexities of human intent? Musk's phrasing, "It can't be stopped," echoed through social media, sparking both wonder and unease. Some interpreted it as a declaration of progress, others saw it as a warning that humanity might have unleashed something beyond control. The psychological impact of that idea of an unstoppable creation rippled through global consciousness, blurring the line between awe and dread. For the Navy, the breakthrough represented decades of silent perseverance. Within classified archives lay thousands of failed experiments, lost funding proposals, and near-abandoned theories. The eventual success was not an accident, but the culmination of collective ambition, scientific defiance, and unrelenting curiosity. Musk's revelation brought that hidden triumph into the light, transforming anonymous engineers and physicists into unsung architects of a new era. It was a reminder that behind every technological miracle stood human determination and vision. From a strategic perspective, the technology rendered distance irrelevant. Naval fleets could traverse oceans without fuel. Aircraft could operate indefinitely without refueling, and space vehicles could bypass gravitational wells entirely. Communication, navigation, and surveillance systems would require complete re-engineering to keep pace. The defense world had entered a post-velocity era, one defined not by speed or range, but by control over the very medium of existence. The revelation of the Navy's unstoppable creation continued to reverberate across every layer of society long after Musk's words faded from the stage. In the days that followed, a quiet unease began to settle, a realization that the foundation of human technological identity had shifted overnight. The Navy, an institution rooted in centuries of maritime dominance, had transcended its own legacy. What had begun as an attempt to strengthen defense had evolved into something that defied categorization. The boundaries between weapon, vessel, and energy system had dissolved, replaced by a singular concept: total mastery over the forces of motion and resistance. Musk's announcement did not include visuals of the system, but eyewitnesses described faint, luminous patterns shimmering across its surface, patterns that seemed to pulse with mathematical rhythm. Each fluctuation was deliberate, synchronized, as if it were communicating in a language written in frequencies. Engineers speculated that the device's outer shell wasn't merely a protective barrier, but an active part of its field manipulation. It interacted with the surrounding environment, absorbing and redirecting energy to maintain perfect equilibrium. To those who understood the physics involved, it was almost poetic, a machine that didn't fight against nature, but harmonized with it. In laboratories and observatories around the world, physicists began reassessing the laws they thought were immutable. The idea that a craft could neutralize inertia and gravity meant that human understanding of energy conservation, momentum, and thermodynamics had to be re-examined. Some theorists proposed that the Navy's creation operated on a principle of field symmetry, drawing energy from the curvature of space itself. If true, it meant that the device could theoretically sustain itself indefinitely. A perpetual engine not through magic or violation of physics, but through perfect equilibrium with the structure of reality. Such an achievement hinted at a level of scientific maturity that suggested the dawn of a Type 1 civilization, a society capable of harnessing planetary-scale energy. For centuries, humanity had been bound by its dependence on chemical and nuclear sources, but now a glimpse of something far greater had appeared. Musk's revelation was, in many ways, a mirror of the Renaissance, a sudden explosion of knowledge that forced every discipline to evolve or become obsolete. Engineers were no longer designing within limits. They were designing around the very shape of space and energy itself. Within military strategy circles, analysts began crafting new doctrines. Traditional warfare relied on predictability, radar systems, heat signatures, and communication interception. But the Navy's craft erased all of that. A system capable of nullifying detection and resisting interference rendered old models useless. The very notion of front lines became irrelevant because no force could anticipate, detect, or stop something that existed partially outside of conventional physics. The implications extended even into deterrence theory. Nations realized that any attempt at confrontation could be rendered meaningless before it began. Musk emphasized that such technology required not just mastery of science, but mastery of discipline. Power without restraint was no progress at all. He warned that the world had entered an age where ethical advancement must match scientific discovery, or humanity would risk consuming itself. The ability to create an unstoppable system could inspire both hope and fear, and the balance between those two emotions would determine the direction of the coming century. The Navy's success also sparked a philosophical transformation. Thinkers and ethicists began to debate the meaning of invincibility in a moral sense. If something could not be stopped, could it still be governed by conscience? Would a world protected by such technology become more peaceful, or would it drift into complacency under the illusion of safety? Musk's statements hinted that the system was not intended as an instrument of conquest, but as a guardian, an entity designed to prevent harm rather than inflict it. Yet history had shown that even the noblest inventions could be corrupted when power and secrecy intertwined. Within the scientific community, whispers of deeper layers of discovery emerged. Some speculated that the Navy's work involved direct manipulation of quantum coherence on a macroscopic scale, aligning the quantum states of particles to create unified field effects. This alignment could theoretically explain the craft's resistance to external forces and its seamless motion. If the technology operated at this level, it represented the first practical step toward controlling quantum phenomena outside the laboratory. Humanity, for the first time, might have achieved control over reality at its most fundamental layer. Such progress also raised metaphysical questions. If humans could shape the physical constants of their environment, what separated technology from creation itself? Musk described the discovery as a glimpse into the engine room of existence, a poetic but apt metaphor for the depth of understanding involved. The Navy's system wasn't merely a breakthrough in defense, it was a revelation that reality could be engineered. The craft was less a vehicle and more an act of synthesis. Human thought materialized into controlled geometry. As more fragments of information circulated, it became clear that the project had taken decades of silent evolution. The Navy's research had branched into unconventional areas: magnetofluid dynamics, toroidal energy flow, and high-frequency resonance control. The synthesis of these fields produced results that no single discipline could have achieved alone. It was a reminder that the greatest discoveries often arose not from isolated genius, but from collective persistence. Every failure in the program had laid a stepping stone toward an understanding that finally coalesced into success. Economists began to imagine what such technology could do beyond the military. The ability to generate limitless energy and motion without resource depletion could dismantle entire industries overnight. Oil, gas, and even nuclear power would become relics of an older age. Energy independence would no longer be a dream but a universal condition. Global infrastructure could shift toward efficiency unimaginable in the current era. Cities could levitate their own transport systems, and cargo vessels could travel across oceans without engines or fuel. What had once been a military marvel could redefine civilization itself. Musk's commentary alluded to this potential without delving into classified specifics. He noted that when humanity discovered fire, it gained warmth and survival, but also the ability to destroy. The Navy's discovery, he said, was fire reborn on a cosmic scale. How it would be used would determine whether it became humanity's greatest tool or its undoing. The technology's unstoppable nature did not merely refer to its defense capabilities, it referred to the momentum of progress itself. Once unleashed, innovation could not be reversed. Even in its secrecy, the Navy's system began to influence art, culture, and imagination. Filmmakers, writers, and philosophers drew inspiration from the idea of a human creation that could transcend limitation. The narrative of the unstoppable craft became a metaphor for humanity's endless pursuit of understanding. It represented not just physical invulnerability, but the triumph of curiosity over constraint. The mythos surrounding it grew, merging science and spirituality into a single vision of transcendence. In academic halls, debates raged over the theoretical underpinnings of the system. Some argued it was an advanced evolution of electromagnetic propulsion, others claimed it operated through zero-point energy extraction. What unified every theory was a recognition that the Navy had tapped into a region of physical law that conventional science had only hinted at. For decades, fringe researchers had speculated about vacuum energy and subspace resonance. Now those speculations seemed justified. The scientific establishment, once skeptical, began to reassess what had been dismissed as pseudoscience. Musk's own companies were rumored to be exploring similar concepts for interplanetary travel. If the Navy's system could be adapted for civilian use, Mars colonization could occur not in a century, but within a single generation. Propulsion that required no fuel, no external mass, and no reliance on atmospheric conditions would make space itself navigable as freely as the oceans. Humanity could extend its reach beyond the solar system, perhaps even toward the stars. The dream of becoming a multiplanetary species was no longer fantasy. It was a technical inevitability waiting to be refined. At the same time, geopolitical anxiety deepened. The existence of an unstoppable defense mechanism threatened to unbalance alliances built over decades. Some nations feared that the United States would possess unchecked superiority, capable of rendering any adversary powerless. Others argued that such dominance could stabilize global relations by eliminating the feasibility of conflict. The paradox was that true peace might emerge not through equality of power, but through its absolute concentration in the hands of one system. Musk's comments seemed aware of this contradiction. Power that cannot be challenged must be tempered by self-restraint, or it risks turning inward, consuming the very values it was built to protect. Technologists and theorists began examining the broader pattern that led to this breakthrough. Many concluded that humanity was entering a phase where its inventions were beginning to evolve faster than its understanding of them. Artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and now space-time manipulation all shared a common thread. They pushed the boundaries of comprehension. The Navy's creation represented the culmination of this pattern, a system so advanced that even its creators might only partially grasp its implications. It was a testament to how far humanity had come, but also a warning about how far it might fall if wisdom did not evolve at the same pace as knowledge. Within the private sector, the announcement sparked a wave of innovation. Laboratories began experimenting with energy resonance systems inspired by the fragments of information Musk had disclosed. Although none could replicate the Navy's achievement, progress accelerated in fields like superconductivity and plasma stabilization. For the first time, collaboration between civilian and military research reached an unspoken synergy. The Navy's discovery had redefined the limits of possibility, and that redefinition rippled through every field of study. Philosophically, the notion of something unstoppable forced a re-examination of human identity. For millennia, progress had been defined by overcoming obstacles, gravity, disease, distance, ignorance. But what happens when humanity creates something that no longer faces resistance? Without limitation, does ambition lose meaning, or does it evolve into something purer? Musk's remarks hinted at a new stage of consciousness, one where the pursuit of power gave way to the pursuit of understanding. The Navy's creation was not an endpoint, but a threshold, a door opening toward an era where the fabric of existence could be woven by choice rather than chance. As discussions deepened, some speculated about the metaphysical side effects of manipulating energy fields so vast. Could such interference influence natural systems? Perhaps even the planet's magnetic stability or atmospheric balance? If the technology drew from the fundamental structure of reality, might its misuse ripple beyond the physical world? These questions underscored the delicate relationship between power and consequence. Musk's careful tone during his announcement reflected that awareness, an acknowledgement that humanity had stepped into uncharted territory. In the scientific community, curiosity and caution merged into a single emotion: reverence. To alter gravity, to mold inertia, to reshape the invisible scaffolding of the universe, was an act that bordered on creation itself. Some scientists described it as a dialogue with the cosmos, a conversation in mathematics and light. The Navy's device, whether called a craft, a field generator, or something entirely new, had transformed physics from observation into participation. Humanity was no longer merely studying reality, it was redesigning it. Beyond the intellectual and strategic implications, there was a human story beneath the revelation. The engineers who had worked in anonymity, the mathematicians who had chased unsolvable equations, and the visionaries who had refused to accept the word impossible, all had contributed to this leap. Their perseverance embodied the essence of human progress, a defiance of boundaries, a refusal to surrender to ignorance. Musk's admiration for these individuals was evident. He spoke of them as pioneers who had walked through the unknown with nothing but faith in their understanding. Even as secrecy surrounded the system, its philosophical presence became universal. The unstoppable creation symbolized the culmination of humanity's desire to transcend vulnerability. Since the dawn of time, survival had been defined by defense, shelters, weapons, walls, and strategies. But now, for the first time, humanity had created something that required no defense at all. It existed in a state of perpetual equilibrium, unassailable and untouchable. In that sense, it represented not just power, but serenity, the ultimate manifestation of control through understanding. Musk's revelation also had cultural consequences. Artists began to reinterpret the concept of unstoppable energy through sculpture, digital art, and music. The notion of a machine that transcended opposition inspired movements that blended science and spirituality. It was seen as a symbol of the merging of human creation and cosmic law, a reminder that invention could be an act of harmony rather than domination. Across the world, this event reignited a sense of wonder, a rare emotional alignment between awe and inspiration. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us? What are your thoughts on Elon Musk revealing the Navy's unstoppable tech? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.